Yes, sir.
What's up, big dog?
What's up, brother?
Yeah,
How you been?
good, man. You know me, music. It's chosen, so that's not just like Pandora music, you know.
Right,
And
right. I figured that one. Yeah.
that is Celia with la Matancera because everyone thinks Celia is La Vida es un Carnaval. Nothing wrong with that, but I like
Right, right.
in the Matancera days. I know you're a passion about music. Thank you
Agreed.
for joining me today. If you don't mind, I'm gonna be cooking something anyway. It's just because I'm hungry.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
Absolutely, absolutely.
a cacho pepe, que you know it's simple but hard to make, right?
Right, of course.
So listen, what have you been up to lately? Talk to us about that.
So you know, I've been working on this project called Marabu last couple of years. It's a restaurant, a Cuban restaurant that's all based off of charcoal cooking, like they do in the countryside in Cuba. You know, we were working on it for the last 2.5 years, and like everybody else, you know, we got blindsided by the pandemic, and you know, we had to close down. Well, actually, before we even opened, we opened our doors for a couple of days, and then we had to close down because the city was asking us to close down, and you know, fortunately, we're able to open back up. We've been going strong for about 3 months now. Luckily, you know, knock on wood, we haven't really had any major issues as far as our you know, any issues with with COVID or anything like that in the restaurant. We've been following all the regulations, and you know, we're fortunate in Miami that the weather's a little better here. Although there is a lot of cases, but restaurants are being given a little bit of leeway to operate. You know, I feel for a lot of the people around the country right now that aren't as fortunate as us to be able to, you know, to be able to have indoor seating and just outdoor seating. Period.
I agree. One, the weather. Two, your governor is pretty open to saying, "Hey, let's try to maneuver as best as we can," because
Right.
it's not a typical state. It's a state where tourism plays a lot with also local economics. So
Huge.
it's kind of a good for the restaurant industry, especially you're in. Let's talk about Marabu. Let's talk about some of the things on the menu because it looks banging. And I know you have some.
Yeah.
I mean, just when I think I can cook good, then I see your dishes. I'm like, just sit down, bro. What's up?
No, I know you throw down just as well. No, you know, it's funny because when we started this project, it was supposed to be kind of like a, you know, Asia de Cuba, kind of that Asian Cuban kind of feel. And as we traveled to Cuba, me and my partner, and we went to Vinales, and you know, one of the things that a requirement for us was to make sure that we went somewhere where cars couldn't go and there was no electricity and they still cooked with charcoal. You know, Marabu, I guess we should start with that. Marabu is a charcoal produced in Cuba by a plant called Marabu. It's an invasive weed that's taken over a large part of the agricultural land in Cuba. And years ago, farmers figured out a way of making charcoal out of it, and it's such a dense wood, such a strong wood.
So that's
that
from Vinales. From Vinales, that type of charcoal.
It's actually abundant in Cuba. It's all over the like the more rural areas, because it grows very easily in shallow ground. You know, so any animal eats it, and then, you know, wherever they, you know, do their business, that another tree pops out. It's very fertile. So yeah, they create this charcoal now. It's like one of the most sought after charcoals in the world, and you find it in when you go to Spain. I was in Barcelona last year, and you know, every supermarket has this charcoal. So, you know, we went there. And we went to this lady's house, and it's just a great experience. We were on this farm. We had to walk a couple miles into Monte, and this lady actually was cooking inside a house with charcoal, and it blew my mind away. There was still people that were practicing, you know, that were cooking like this.
When you say,
you know, after our,
how are they? Did they have like a hibachi? Obviously not a hibachi grill, but that kind of stuff. Because if they're doing it inside, I'm talking about for the air, you know.
Right. No, yeah. No, I mean, it was the craziest thing because there was soot on the wall. It was all black. So there was no ventilation or anything. I mean, this lady's like 80 years old, you know, so obviously there's something to that, you know. I mean, they make them stronger than you know, they don't make it strong now as they used to. But yeah, you know, once we did that experience, and just through our travel and everything, you know, we got on the plane, and I said to my partner, I'm like, you know, this is what we are. I don't think we need to be anything else. I think this will be unique in itself to actually have a Cuban restaurant and be fortunate enough, obviously to bring these ovens from Spain, the Jasper ovens, which are charcoal ovens, and take an approach to Cuban food where everything kind of touches charcoal, where every little ingredient, from our sofrito, everything is charred on the Jaspers and it's processed on the Jasper oven. So everything touches charcoal, but it's not 100% like it's a smokehouse or anything like that. I wanted to make sure where there was good balance, where you had a little bit of that, but there was also a good balance with dishes that had good acidity to it, that would cut through that smoky charcoal flavor of the meats and some of the other dishes.
You're saying some interesting things because since I've met you, you've always been passionate about Cuban culinary. Here you go back, you look at it, you bring it back, and you're bringing a traditional style of cooking and lifestyle into a pretty uppity end Brickell. Because I've been to your places in Little Havana, which were awesome. Yeah. Now you're in a different demographic, and you're bringing algo criollo, algo típico. I mean, it's beyond the business. It's also a passion of yours, right? You feel fulfilled, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I grew up, like everybody else that ends up in a kitchen, and at some point in your life, you spend time either with your family cooking or something that really made you passionate about wanting to be in the kitchen. And with me, it was my family, so that's why there's such a close attachment to Cuban food and Spanish food, really. I mean, any Latin. I mean, I love Latin food, period. You know what I mean? Like I look at the whole gamut of just our cuisine, whether it be Central America, South America, the Caribbean, and we got it going on, man. There's a lot of good food.
Let's face it, Miami is inundated with Cuban restaurants.
Yeah,
you're bringing something different, so that it exposes different people to different styles and flavors of Cuban.
Right.
Que no lo típico, right?
Yeah, so it was real interesting when we started doing the menu. We said to ourselves, this has to be somewhat of an a la carte restaurant, which is hard with the Cuban cuisine because, it always comes with the acompañantes, the arroz, the frijoles, the this, the that. So the initial thought was we were going to do that, but then we decided to add the accompaniments, which I think was a good decision because, the older generation, it's hard to change their ways. But anyways, when we went in to start doing it, we kind of took the approach like it was an American style barbecue place. Right? We said, hey, you know what? Let's take we started with the tasajo, which is a cured meat that they dry in Cuba, and then we took that approach and then we said, you know what? Let's try the masita. So then we started, most of our meats at Marabu are cured as if it were a barbecue place. So our ribs, our masitas, we cure everything beforehand. Well, and everything has a process.
You're incorporating American tradition, like you said, smokehouse barbecue. When I went to your sandwich shop, the Rubencito, I mean, it's just crazy,
Yeah.
And that's one thing I like. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Miami, man. I grew up in an area in Miami called Kendall.
Okay.
I was the earlier part of my life. I lived in Homestead, which is more of like a rural farmer area, and that's because my father and my grandfather. They were commercial fishermen. They fished lobster, spiny lobsters and stone crab down here. And so we lived, near, it's closer to the Keys. They had their boats in the Keys, so they would fish out of there. So I grew up on a boat, most of the time. And that was kind of the beginning to me, to see that whole cycle, of catching the fish, and cooking it. And, I got to see that at an early age, and it kind of stuck with me. And it's it's just that's where I get the passion from, really.
That was my next question. What leads me to the next one is, how long were you cooking before you decided you want to go into the business part of it and open up your own restaurant? Because just so you know, this show is called Como, where we talk about with winemakers, chefs, music, athletes, and when they went from recreation mindset to a business mindset. So how long were you cooking before you said, I want to have my own restaurant?
So, I started out as a musician. As you know, I actually, went out to where, not too far from where you are, and I don't know exactly where you're at, but if you're near Concord, I went out to march for the Concord Blue Devils.
I grew up in Concord, and we talked about this. So I was like, wow, you know Bill Ortega, a mutual friend of ours, right? Bill Ortega.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. so yeah, I went out there and I did music for a good while after I graduated from high school, but I had always been working in restaurants. I worked in some of the more commercial restaurants like Romano's Macaroni Grill, Friday. Some of those, you don't really want to, but it was everything is a learning experience, right? So it gave me kind of that corporate feel to it. And then when I got back from California, I started working for a chef named Robin Haas, which he just passed last year. Amazing chef down here. And I was working for him at a place called Grove Isle.
Okay.
And I walked in as the breakfast cook. And it was the first time where I worked in a kitchen at that level, right? I mean, they were Relais and Chateau, and I was just a breakfast cook, and I was just, flipping eggs and this and that. And it was, I met a lot of people there that kind of, one of them was actually an old schoolmate of mine that we went to school in junior high at Westwood Christian. His name's Sean Bernal. And me and Sean, he kind of showed me around the kitchen, showed me the ropes, and I started reading books and gaining more and more interest. And that was really where I really said, hey, I really want to do this for a career. And then the one experience that really made me want to have my own restaurant was when I worked at a place called La Broche. That was it's a restaurant from Madrid that opened up here in Miami, 2 Michelin star. Chef's name was Sergio Rolla, or he's no longer with the restaurant. He's still around though.
What was it that inspired you to say, I want my own?
I really wanted to, like every other chef, you want to show people what you're made of. You want to be able to really dictate what you're putting on the menu and showing people your food, showing people your personality. Because a lot of times when you work for other people, that vision always gets a little distorted because obviously you have partners, and not to say that I have partners currently, but I've gotten to a point in my career where they trust me and they let me do my thing. But yeah, it's mainly was about wanting to show people what I'm capable of, what I had grown into, what my identity was as far as a chef, and and where Cuban food can go. I mean, well, what are the possibilities? And then just a lot of things. Also, being a Latin chef here in the United States, there was a moment there where we were kind of, especially in Miami, there was like this evolution going on where there was a lot of fusion going on, and it was very cool. But I really wanted to show, I grew up eating very traditional meals.
Yeah.
And I saw a lot of potential in that, and just and I always tell people, this is kind of going off track, but when there's always that first migration of any ethnicity, whether it was Italians, whether it was the Polish, whether it was Cubans, whatever, that first generation that always comes is just, they're here for the hustle, man. They're trying to make money, right? So it's always, restaurants opens up, and then it's not always the greatest quality, right? Because you're trying to make those margins, you're trying to make money. So that's my theory, right? I think as generations go on and you get that second generation and that third generation, that's where you start seeing the better restaurants come out, right? So like the better Italian restaurants.
Se refina, because now you've got wider ingredients and different cooking,
right?
Things. That's good. And that's one thing. That's one thing, and not to cut you off, but that's one of the things I love about you is that you understand the business part of it. And you're absolutely right. Cooking is the personality of oneself. Like, I wish you can try it, but can you see that cacio?
No, it looks delicious. That looks delicious.
Like I'll pair that because my girlfriend's Cuban, so I'll make cacio pepe with un bistec encebollado, right? Because she wants steak and pasta. But that's the first I've heard anyone say that cooking is basically showing people your personality. It's not just your passion and people, la personalidad. So where do you see the industry now, though? Because for our viewers, you've had several restaurants that you've launched, and you've moved on to different ones. Some do their time, and then you have the latest one. Where do you see the food industry going in the next 3 years now with COVID and what you've learned? What's in the mind of Alberto?
Right, man. It's a tough question to answer right now. Because I think everybody has a different answer depending on where you are, and that's just the reality. You know what I mean? And it goes back to kind of like what we said at the beginning here. There's people right now that are really struggling, and and there's really no help for them right now. So I think that's a big issue that we have to deal with as a whole, because those are our brothers, it's our industry. So I think everybody kind of has to, it's going to be one of those things where it's going to have to be a whole, you know what I mean? As a whole, we're going to have to come at us because, there are people that are going to be a little more fortunate. Myself, I'm in a situation where I find myself a little more fortunate because I'm with a group that it's a larger group. They're very stable financially, and they're growing right now, actually, as absurd as it may sound.
So right there for our viewers, and we want to turn that passion to profession, there's several ways to open up a successful business, a restaurant. One would be your own equity, two would be partners, and three would be groups.
Right.
And that's why we have different chefs. Listen, I don't even want to tell you what chefs I have on until it all comes out, because you'll see the caliber, and that's how much I admire you, bro.
I appreciate that, man.
So yeah, the concept is changing, like you said, and it's different. And I guess I didn't want to go too much into like what needs to happen in the industry, because you don't have a spokesperson saying, hey, restaurants, here's how we can lobby for PPP funds, right? Here's the things that we need to do to provide a solution, because people go straight to protesting, and I get that, but there's got to be some offering, some data, and even if you put your time into that, the vaccine's coming out, so you just got to roll with the punches, and you've learned from yourself is that you do good. Now, what everyone should know is you save a little bit for a rainy day. Just like groups, we have a lot to learn from these people, correct?
Right, of course, yeah. I mean, look, me myself. I mean, I'm right now we're in control mode, right? So we're controlling every cost that we can because we're not having a typical season. But going back to these guys, I've been consulting with this company for the last 14 years, and I came on as a partner after I closed my own company. And they're like I said, they're fortunate right now. They're growing. We're actually opening a restaurant this week on Ocean Drive. Not the ideal time to do it, but it was already in the works. So they're continuing to grow. We have the restaurants in Vegas, but there are other people, like I said, that aren't as fortunate as us, and that's where, like you said, people have to kind of hunker down and have kind of hope. And I know it's kind of the wrong thing to say, because it's hard to tell people when they're going through a tough time right now, hey, have hope that there's going to be better days.
It is.
But that's kind of the only thing that there is at this point, right? Because nobody's stepping up, like you said, to say, hey, we're going to help you guys out, and this is what we're going to do. There's no plan right now. So you kind of have to wait and see kind of thing right now, and it's hard to say that and hard to do that when you're honest, especially when you're working, because there's, I have a lot of friends that are hurting right now. So.
Oh no, and you of all people, and same with me, we know that we've had several businesses, and when we don't think it can get better, it ends up getting better. You get what I'm saying?
Right, exactly.
So hay que tener la esperanza, and things like this, these conversations help, bro. Believe it or not, what you consume is what you can see, what you can become. So let's go into some fun stuff.
One more thing that you asked me, and just to right quick. So, I think mainly to answer your question shortly, I think, and I said this before, I think what we need is really, things that are created from this point forward in our industry. And I think what we can learn from this is let's educate ourselves, right? Let's become better businessmen. Let's not let people take advantage of us. You know what I mean? And let them know that we know how to run a business, that we know how to run a business successfully. And then our industry is going to be looked at a little differently.
That's because what I think about. That's what I think. That's because if you get 50 of us who know business, who know the creation of content, who know the restaurant business, who know how to, set up different. You take the revenue and diversify it so that the business of Alberto Cabrera empire or Tito's empire scales. That is the key. You're right. You have to know the business.
Absolutely.
This as a musician. So one time I spent time, so you're a drummer, timbaleros?
Yeah, of course.
So a famous timbalero told me one time, he's like, listen, if you don't know the business, then you might as well not do music. Because he had given 30 years of his life. That was Manny Oquendo. Conjunto Libre. And me dice,
yeah, of course.
Si uno no entiende el negocio, de que se salgan. And I said, why? You spent 30 years? He goes, yeah, but look at the industry. And so it's cool that you're in the food business, you're a restaurateur, you're out there, but you're saying, hey, if this thing has taught us is to understand the business so we can show people that we know how to run it. but also provide more opportunities, you know?
Right. Yeah. And I think for the longest time, we've and I experienced it myself with some chefs that I work for. We don't like really encourage our younger generation that's coming in up in the industry. You know what I mean? Like educate those guys, share the information with them. So like that, we're building a stronger base. You know what I'm saying? We're building a stronger foundation because the foundation comes from the younger generation that's coming behind us. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So they need to know that the restaurant industry is not, what everybody paints it out to be. You can be successful. You can make a very decent living if you do things the right way. You know what I mean? And it's all about educating each other and sharing all the mistakes. Like, I tell my guys all the time, I made a ton of mistakes, and I talking to my kids, but kind of how it is,
No, listen, you can chase the Michelin, just spend a little bit of time understanding the business, because even if we're Michelin and you can't pay the bills with a family, it makes it hard on someone to continue the art. You get what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
That's the dopest response dialogue. I love that needs to be told, and we're gonna scale on that. Some fun stuff. You ready? I mean, and don't tell me you can't answer it just half-footed, right? Give me your pet peeves on when people go to a restaurant, what they shouldn't do that bugs you in a good way.
I would say let me think about that. The biggest pet peeve that I probably have, because I'm not your typical chef. I'm pretty open to everything.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But I will say one of my pet peeves is, oh man, yeah, I'm pretty easygoing, with everyone. But I will say maybe like just an unreasonable request, like if you come in and you just completely change a dish, without or just putting salt on a dish without even trying it first. That's actually high on my list.
Yeah, that's kind of like in the movie Joy Luck Club when that white dude came to the Asian family, just put soy sauce on it.
Exactly.
All
I
right.
had someone do that in front of the kitchen the other day. I almost lost them, but it's all good.
Yeah. What about your pet peeves in today's society, the extremes, of the political climate? Not what you believe in, but the way I'm acting a fool, because I don't go into people's beliefs.
Yeah, I think people sometimes let themselves be led too much. You know what I mean? And then react without really being informed. And I think we have a lot of that. I think with social media, we come from a time where it was before social media, so I could say that, right? I mean, like before social media, you actually did your homework a little bit before you actually went out and and went to an extreme with something. And I think nowadays we see a headline, or people might not even like click onto it to see what's behind that headline. And the headlines nine times out of 10 are produced to get a rise out of you.
And it's happening.
I read a headline the other day that totally misled me, and then I read the article and it was something completely different. So
yeah,
I would say, be a little more informed.
Before you being Cuban, me being Nicaraguense, our parents or our families come around for the same reason around the same time, and so we're like the progression in this country. Y uno ve lo que está pasando en la política, entonces we actuar. Did you vote this past election?
I did, man. I did.
That's good. I want to show que Latinos we vote, bro. Because
man, I'll tell you, I voted, and let's just say, I did my part,
I tell people that I don't care where you vote, who you vote, as long as you vote. That's it.
Yeah.
If you weren't a chef, and I already know this, but it might have changed. If you weren't a chef, what would you be doing as a career?
I'd be doing music, man. I love music. Yeah.
Okay.
It's one of those it's one of those things where I still like, I get off on listening to a good orquesta. It's just like, well, I'm very passionate about music. And I see myself sometimes like I'm like I could have been a great lead singer for a band, and I'm like I'm too tall and goofy. Nobody's gonna want to see me up there trying to jam out. But then I see you, man. You're a great dancer, so maybe it is possible.
Well, I'm a good dancer because my mom told me I sucked at singing, and and so I had to learn how to dance. And I also I like it no matter how confident I am. And then I'll see one of your comments to me, you're like, "Yo, don't forget timba," because we had that. I don't forget those. I remember meeting you at your restaurants. Then we hung out during Art Basel. Then we did a Cuban study group together.
Yeah, of course.
That was awesome, bro. And now back. I can't wait to go to a new one. A couple more. If there was a person dead or alive who you would love to have dinner with, who would that be and why?
My pops, man.
Oh,
You know,
see,
and I know that sounds kind of whatever, but it's just you know, he passed a little young, and you know, we were boys, and he loved to eat. So it was, you know, it's one of those things where I'd love to have my grandmother cook for us and me and him sit down at the table. Because
that's
Abuela
beautiful.
always would be like, I love to see you guys sit down and eat, you know. So somebody that actually took pleasure in just seeing people eat, you know, that would be my perfect combo for sure.
What would be the dish you ask your abuela to cook?
Bro, yeah, like I would ask her to cook. She used to do this carne mechada where she would take the tri-tip and stuff it with like chorizo, like jamon, and like tocino, and then she would sear it and braise it with papitas and vino seco, and it was like, you know, super tender stuff. You know, I had the little meat inside. It was that with some rice and beans. I mean, you know, that's
Yeah.
that's what that's what the good stuff is made of.
And what would be the conversation with your father?
Man, it would be about food. Yeah, honestly, you know, it would be about food and my career, because he passed right as I started, as my career started ascending. So he really didn't get to see it. And the funniest thing is going back to my grandma, she I remember telling her, "Well, I'm voy a ser cocinero." And my grandma was like 3 foot 11. You know, I'm 6 foot 5, and she looked up at me. She's like, "No me diga, con lo bonito que tú eres, cogiste la carrera más mala del mundo."
I love that. I love that, man. I love
Uh, but you know, thankfully it worked out. You know, and I kind of wish she would see it too, because she sees that, you know, it worked out for me. But you know, parents always want the best for, you know, and they always think that the best. And this goes back to educating, right? Like they always think the best is being an attorney or being a doctor, or being this. You know, there's something to be said about being a great restaurateur and a great chef, and in our industry. You know, it's a respectable industry. It's a hardworking industry. The majority of people I meet in our industry are all honest people. They're good people. You know, and mainly they're the backbone of this country, man. They work, and they're, you know, they're getting a raw deal right now. You know, we're getting a raw deal. So
you are, and we are, and it creates opportunity. But I think very
absolutely, absolutely.
very few people, and we need to get more people like you that are fortunate and like I to be blessed to be working in a profession that's our passion, and then making a good living off of it. We
Right.
have to be able to talk about not just creating good food and the way we make people feel, but that we are very profitable because that allows us to have the money for the options for our family, the options for a better education for our children. And that's
Absolutely.
and eso comienza con esta conversación. This COVID made us kind of recalibrate what true success is, and
Yeah. You know, and that's like you said, you nailed it right on the. I mean, there's opportunity, you know, and with every situation like this, there is always, excuse me, there is always opportunity. And you know, whatever your opportunity is, you know, you may be a guy that was, you know, cooking at a restaurant, you were a chef at a restaurant, you have a little money saved up, or you know, or an opportunity comes to you in a couple months where it's a second generation restaurant. You know, unfortunately, somebody's misfortune could turn into your fortune, right? I mean, so we got to look at those things as well, and you know, and try to help the people that, you know, weren't able to make it out of this, and I'm sure we'll be fine, man. I mean, it's tough to say that, you know, but I think we'll be okay. I think, you know, our industry will rebound, and it's going to rebound strong.
yeah, and we have
Like
no
you-
choice.
right.
But listen, Alberto, thank you for your time, bro.
Yeah, bro, I got to get out there, man. I got to get out there. We got to hang out, and you know, and so we'll see when that happens. I was just out in Denver, so I was kind of close to you.
Yeah,
So
kind of like 2 hours away. But I got to get out to Miami and check out the new joint. And
absolutely, man. I'd love to have you.
but thank you for your time, my brother. Un
All
abrazo.
right, man. Un abrazo igual, bro. Cuídate.
All right.